Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicolas Richardson and this is the news. Day 140 of the war in Ukraine. 47 bodies have been found under the rubble of the block in Chasiv Yar, which was attacked on Monday. Because of the constant attack by Russian forces, maximum mobilization is taking place in Ukraine to liberate all territories under occupation by the aggressor as soon as possible. The Ukrainian forces are successfully destroying Russian ammunition depots in the south of the country. The death toll from the attack on the apartment block in Chasiv Yar in the Donetsk region has exceeded 40. The rescue operation is still continuing there. According to Moscow, Russia is determined to take control of the entire Donbass region. Therefore, Ukrainian troops are preparing for the Russian offensive in the east of the country. The concentration of Russian troops and the import of equipment in the region is continuing, especially in the vicinity of Bakhmut, Seversk, as well as Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. This is war. Death is inevitable. Some people die, others are injured, and still others suffer loss. Some are lucky, others are not. Mass firing began. They fired on civilians with Grad rockets. We heard screams, and when we got there, we saw a wounded woman. Despite the continuing mobilization, determination and heroism of the soldiers, Ukraine will not be able to cope with the more powerful invader without concrete support from the West. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion, the Polish government has been involved in supplying military aid for a neighbor who fights for freedom. The value of the support provided to Ukraine by Poland amounts to $1.7 billion. We are one of the leading countries supporting Ukraine, and this aid is in the interests of Poland. We want to be neighbors with free Ukraine, not with Russia, and that is why we support Ukraine. The Polish Ministry of Defense supports the Ukrainian army. We are convinced that we are together in this difficult situation. We are together in this tragedy caused by Russian aggression. Our relationships in times of peace will only grow stronger. Meanwhile, the topic of the blockade of Ukrainian grain constantly returns to the international agenda. Delegations from Turkey, Russia and Ukraine, as well as the United Nations delegation, met in Istanbul today to hold talks on the safe export of agricultural products from Ukrainian ports blockaded by Russian ships. Ukraine is ready to export its grain to the international market. 2 more steps separate us from an agreement with Russia. We are in the final stages and now it all depends on the Russian Federation. According to United Nations data, more than 5,000 civilians have died in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. Over 6,500 people have been injured. The actual death toll may be much higher. Meanwhile, according to a poll commissioned by the Kremlin, 1/3 of Russians surveyed believe that the special operation in Ukraine called by Putin should end as soon as possible, and the rest support the continuation of the war. Poland's Defense Minister, Mariusz Błaszczak, visited Kiev yesterday and met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky expressed his gratitude to Poland as it has opened its doors to Ukrainian refugees, and Poland's President Andrzej Duda has allowed his country to be used as a logistics hub to keep Ukraine supplied as it fights an exhausting war of attrition against Russia. Poland's defense ministry is indeed supporting the Ukrainian army, the might of the Ukrainian armed forces. It proves that we are standing together in this difficult current situation, in this tragedy which is now happening in Ukraine because of the Russian aggression against our country. I am certain relations between our countries will become even stronger in the future when Ukraine is a peaceful country. On his one-day visit to Ukraine, Błaszczak paid tribute to the fallen Ukrainian servicemen immortalized in the memorial wall next to St. Michael's Cathedral in central Kiev. He then attended an outdoor exhibition featuring captured Russian tanks and armored vehicles. In the face of the war in Ukraine, Poland is modernizing its armed forces and from next year wants to spend over 3% of gross domestic product on defense. Earlier today, about 600 firefighters, supported by 6 firefighting aircraft, were battling to bring under control 2 wildfires in southwestern France, which have already burnt more than 1,700 hectares and prompted the evacuation of thousands of tourists. France, already hit by a series of wildfires over the last few weeks, is suffering, like the rest of Europe, from a second heatwave in as many months. Yesterday, several wildfires swept across Portugal's central region, as well as in western Spain, also forcing the evacuation of hundreds of residents. The biggest of the 2 Gironde department fires is around the town of Landiras, south of Bordeaux, where the roads have been closed and 500 residents evacuated, with the blaze having already burnt more than 1,000 hectares. The other one is along the Atlantic coast, close to the iconic Dune du Pilat, the tallest sand dune in Europe, located in the Arrachambay area, above which heavy clouds of dark smoke were seen rising to the sky. That fire has already burnt 700 hectares and led to preventative evacuation of 6,000 people from 5 surrounding campsites. They were brought for shelter to a local exhibition centre. On the eve of Bastille Day, the Gironde Prefecture has forbidden all fireworks until Monday, July the 18th, in towns and villages in close proximity to forests. Today, United States President Joe Biden arrived in Israel, which embraced him as an old friend on the first leg of a high-stakes trip dominated by efforts to bring the country closer to Saudi Arabia and to persuade Washington's Gulf allies to pump more oil. Arriving on Air Force One at Ben Gurion Airport, whose tarmac he first trod in 1973 as a senator, Biden bumped fists with Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid. Biden stressed the unshakable commitment of the United States to Israel's security while expressing his support for a two-state solution.
And now, as president, I'm proud to say that our relationship with the State of Israel is deeper and stronger, in my view, than it's ever been. And with this visit, we're strengthening our connections even further. We have reaffirmed the unshakable commitment of the United States to Israel's security, including partnering with Israel on the most cutting-edge defense systems in the world. Greater peace, greater stability, greater connection. It's critical, if I might add, for all the people of the region, which is why we'll discuss my continued support, even though I know it's not in the near term, a two-state solution. That remains, in my view, the best way to ensure the future of equal measure of freedom, prosperity, and democracy for Israelis and Palestinians alike.
It is Biden's 10th visit to Israel, which has stepped carefully around disagreements with Washington over Iranian nuclear policy and long-stalled Palestinian statehood negotiations.
We will discuss building a new security and economy architecture with the nations of the Middle East, following the Abraham Accords and the achievements of the Negev Summit. And we will discuss the need to renew a strong global coalition that will stop the Iranian nuclear program.
Biden will spend 2 days in Jerusalem for talks with Israeli leaders before meeting Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on Friday in the occupied West Bank. On Friday, Biden will then take a direct flight from Israel to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, a first for an American president, for talks with Saudi officials and to attend a summit of Gulf allies. United States officials say that Biden's first trip to the Middle East as president could produce more steps towards normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, historic foes, but also two of America's strongest allies in the turbulent region. Biden's trip aims to promote regional stability, deepen Israel's integration in the region, and counter Iranian influence and aggression by Russia and China. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business, and more programs. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.